This will be a little bit different presentation. We are moving from engineers and education in higher education into the primary school. So I'm a practicing landscape architect and planner. And since the beginning of my career, I have another love, that is environmental education, which I did more or less on voluntary basis for about 22 years. So what I'm about to do today, I will present our approach to environmental education, how we see resilient communities, and what we learned from our experiences with primary school children, and that can contribute to more resilient communities. So, as a young architect and planner, I was early on in my career a part of a team working on water-related topics as part of a state spatial planning policy. And I soon realized that there is not very easy to be constructive in group communication without having at least basic common knowledge base. So at that time, I saw the possible long-term solution to frustration that I was feeling in raising the level of common basic knowledge on water-related natural processes, and the Water Detective program was born. So since this program had very little or no financial support, the idea was to create the program in such a way that we rely on motivating and educating teachers. We wanted projects to be action-oriented and interdisciplinary in nature. We envisioned the children through their work to raise awareness in their communities. And since environmental problems are not problems that can be solved by one person alone, we encouraged teamwork. So we started with yearly art and research competitions. The core of both is a required specific contemporary topic, like, for example, blue-green infrastructure, which was the topic of this year, microplastics, then giving space to the river, and so on. Then children have to explore the topic, and after that, they decide to prepare an art or research project. Here are some examples of their work. This is a model that they built around solving the problem of droughts and floods in their local communities through a story about a supergirl who was actually proposing a lot of different good ideas to the major. So basically, kids had to really go deep into the problems and try to find solutions, and then imagine how to implement those solutions in their local communities. Then these are examples from the competitions of microplastics. Here is a drawing and also a poem of on the topic of microplastic. And here is a large collective work that kids provided thinking about microplastics. So this is another example when they were thinking about blue-green infrastructure in the cities through creating fairy tale. And then this is example of a yearly research competition. So basically, research competitions, the projects are really combined with a lot of different elements. So one of the elements here was that they came up with ideas how basically experiments that they were testing the idea of why do we have to enlarge the corridors for rivers. So basically, this was the and how the flow velocity is different if the corridor is narrow or if it has space for making meanders. So basically, what is really important is that these were not the teachers who were giving them the instructions, but kids themselves. They were the ones who proposed those experiments, and they built them and they explored the things because they were giving the opportunity. So these are also some other examples from their work where they had a survey on the consequences of floods. And here again. So basically, Water Detective, the results that we did in last 22 years, there were 22 research topics. Then 5 to 10% of all Slovenian schools each year cooperated in this, and with 50 to 100 mentors every year, and with over 1,000 pupils. There are also 5 to 10 articles published by schools in their local newspapers about each of the required research topics, because we ask mentors to, whenever they do a research work, that they publish their results in local newspapers so that the ideas they have can get into the local community. So how do we see the problems of contemporary cities? First of all, climate change brings us extreme heat and stronger storms. And as we know, the common practices of managing water have altered the water cycle in a way that landscape is getting increasingly drained. We also know that in the past, we urbanized many flood areas and wetlands. So the challenge is how to change bad practices, and maybe even more important, how to spark innovative thinking and the willingness to make changes. Here we are back to frustration, especially when we take into consideration not only transdisciplinary, but also transcultural communication and paradigm shifts in various disciplines. It is also evident that more than ever, we need to have a common knowledge base and understanding of basic natural processes in order to have a constructive public participation in this matter. Besides this, in Slovenia, majority of people live in family houses, and we know that individual small incremental actions can add to a larger impact. So, the need for the future of water education are therefore increasing the knowledge of natural processes in early general education, integrated approach to teaching, and focusing on creative thinking that sparks curiosity and helps in solving problems. And why early education? Because a basic value system is formed at a very early age, and is connected to emotions. That is, I think, the most important part that I want to stress today. So what are the experiences in this regard that I would like to share and that are lessons learned? What is very important is to combine research with direct experience, but not just those two, also with the artistic expression. Through artistic expression, one can personalize natural processes, and therefore change the perspective of looking at a particular problem. For example, what about if we think about a river as a lady who has a lot of water and has to flood a city because people urbanized all her floodplains? How she feels and thinks. She doesn't want to do all the damage, but she doesn't have space or room to do. So this is a dilemma that kids have to solve when they are engaging in those kind of exercises. So this can give a completely different insight into the problems, but it also touches pupils' emotions, their hearts. This is very important because in this way, our basic system is involved, which is needed to bring forward our willingness to change. One thing that is really important, whatever, regardless to the age, but whatever you learn in school and that was important and it touched your emotions when you are adult, when this topic comes to surface on the, and somebody is like talking about it, somehow this importance kind of message is, this kind of sparks your imagination and say, okay, this is important, I will listen. But if there is no emotion and contact to that, then maybe this just goes by. So that's why it's very important to get this emotional things. So another lesson that learned, we also learned that children are very proud if they research a topic that becomes a hot topic in the media after they have already completed their projects. This was the case with microplastics. Kids were researching about microplastics, and at that time, when they did this in Slovenia, there was not much talking about microplastics in the media yet. And after we completed the projects, there was all over the media, and kids were really happy, telling their mentors how proud they are that they were on the edge of the science. So this is something that is really important. Again, emotions, they are it's very important for their future development. So we also need to stress that parents listen to their kids. And through listening to them, they might learn new things that they would otherwise not hear at all because it would not get to their attention. Then children are very creative and have much more fun if they feel that they own the project. So they have to be able to decide what they will do and how they will do it, because then they are really fired up. I also cannot stress enough the importance of pupils themselves building their own models, games, experiments, and as I mentioned earlier, that they learn to work together as a team, because we will not solve the environmental problems alone, but only in teamwork, in cooperation. So we have to learn how to work in that way. So I also have to stress one negative lesson that we learned. Very often art and language teachers are interested in proposed research topics and they do a great job with their pupils. But to my surprise, they're often not allowed to attend seminars on water education by their principals, since water education is for biology, chemistry, geography teachers, and not for art and language teachers. What a missed opportunity. So based on what has already been presented, I believe that early water education through fun activities and imagination can lead to better understanding of natural processes and eventually to better decisions, which are a base of resilient communities. Maybe I can add just a sentence about our vision of further development of water detective program. We are developing online teaching resource, and the first research question, which is the topic is how the river cleans itself, will soon be available on our web page. And just the concluding sentence, every integrated education on natural processes related to floods, groundwaters, or water purification, based on games, experiments, fairy tales, role-playing, increases the notion of risks and solutions and helps to form basic value system, which leads to better decision-making and eventually to resilient communities. Thank you.